The patient on this table isn't dead, they are being drained. While you look at oil prices, a $40 billion industry is harvesting a liquid gold that only humans can produce. Your blood is no longer a symbol of life. It's a high-margin corporate asset. The United States is now the OPEC of plasma, supplying 70% of the world's demand. But this isn't a miracle of medicine. It's a masterpiece of strategic exploitation. They aren't looking for donors. They are looking for biological serfs who trade their health for rent money. We are dissecting the shadowy alliance between Big Pharma and systemic poverty. Today, we reveal how human essence is refined, packaged, and sold like a luxury commodity on the global market. The scalpel is ready. The incision into the global blood tax begins now. You thought it was an act of charity. The boardrooms knew it was a gold mine with zero production costs. By the end of this report, you will understand why the most valuable thing you own is being harvested twice a week, every week until you break. We begin the primary incision at the Donation Center Strategic Placement. Notice how these facilities are never in affluent suburbs. They are placed with surgical precision in the heart of economic despair. The industry feeds on the inability of the poor to pay their bills. The autopsy reveals biological liquidations. In the 1970s, human plasma was a medical necessity. By 2026, it became a financial instrument. The strategy was to commodify the internal ecosystem of the working class. They didn't just buy a fluid, they purchased the metabolic labor of the needy. Observe the incentive trap. The industry avoids the word payment to bypass labor laws. They call it a gift card or compensation. By rebranding a wage as a reward, they escape the responsibility of being an employer while extracting the most vital resource a human possesses: the rise of plasma vampirism. The industry's growth is directly correlated with the decline of the minimum wage. We find a necrotic link between inflation and extraction. As the cost of living rises, the volume of human plasma entering the corporate supply chain increases exponentially. Examine the biological burnout. Regular extraction causes permanent damage to the immune system. The autopsy shows that the donors aren't just giving plasma. They are giving away their long-term health for a $50 fix. The corporate strategy is to maximize the harvest before the soil is exhausted. We find a massive blockage in ethical oversight. The industry lobbies to ensure that the frequency of donations remains dangerously high. In Europe, you can give once a week. In the US, twice. The strategic goal was to turn the human body into a continuous extraction plant. The border town strategy. Facilities are built specifically near the US-Mexico border to harvest the plasma of cross-border commuters. This isn't healthcare. It's a border-crossing tax paid in blood. The strategy was to exploit the geographic desperation of the Global South to fuel the northern pharmaceutical engine. Look at the refinement necrosis. Once extracted, the plasma is fractionated into high-value proteins like albumin and immunoglobulin. These aren't sold back to the poor. They are refined into expensive treatments for the global elite. The strategy is to turn poverty into a luxury wellness product. Observe the corporate camouflage. They use stock photos of smiling families and words like life-saving to mask the industrial-scale extraction. The strategy was to make the donor feel like a hero, while the corporate ledger treats them like a depreciating asset. The marketing is the anesthetic. The price-fixing heist. A few massive conglomerates control the entire global supply chain. By keeping the payout to donors low and the price to hospitals high, they maintain margins that make oil companies look like charities. The strategic monopoly on human blood is absolute and unchallenged. The autopsy reveals metabolic exhaustion. The human body takes energy and nutrients to regenerate plasma. By extracting it at industrial speeds, the industry is effectively stealing the nutritional capital of the working class. We find that the donors are literally burning their own bodies for survival. Examine the shadow market of antibodies. Plasma with rare antibodies is worth thousands of dollars per liter. The donor gets $100. The corporate strategy is to hide the true value of the material from the producer. The producer is the body. The thief is the corporation. The privacy liquidation necrosis. To give plasma, you must surrender your entire medical history. This data is then sold to insurers and researchers. The strategy was to use the needle as a key to unlock the most private vault of the human experience for profit. Look at the strategic dependency. By paying just enough to cover a utility bill but not enough to escape poverty, the industry ensures a permanent, recurring supply of donors. The strategy is to keep the patient on life support so they can be drained again next week. The regulation black hole. The plasma industry is classified differently from blood donation to avoid public scrutiny. The strategy was to hide a multi-billion-dollar extractive industry behind the voluntary donation terminology. We find that the law has been successfully anesthetized by corporate lobbyists. Examine the biological copyright heist. Companies are now patenting the fractionation processes that turn your blood into their medicine. You are the origin, but they own the outcome. The strategic exploitation of the human body has reached its final, most visceral frontier, the anemia necrosis. Long-term donors often face iron deficiency and chronic fatigue, but the intake centers don't care about the soil, only the harvest. The strategy was to ignore the long-term biological cost in favor of the immediate quarterly earnings report. Profit over pulse. We find systemic extraction in the college debt market. Students are now paying for textbooks with their own plasma. The strategy was to make education so expensive that the only way to fund the mind is to drain the body. A dark, recursive loop of cognitive and biological debt. Dissect the global blood chain. Plasma from a student in Ohio might end up in a luxury hospital in Dubai or Shanghai. This is the redistribution of health from the poor to the powerful. The autopsy reveals that the global economy is a giant circulatory system powered by desperation. The fractionation hegemony. Only a handful of facilities in the world can process plasma into medicine. This bottleneck is a strategic wall that keeps the profits concentrated. They didn't build a health system. They built a fortress of high-margin biological assets. The patient is the prisoner. The addiction to the needle. For some, the $400 a month becomes their only stable income. The industry has effectively turned the human body into an ATM for the working class. The strategy was to ensure that for millions, survival depends on a needle and a plastic tube. Look at the financialization of blood. Plasma stocks are considered recession-proof because people get poorer during downturns, which increases the supply. The corporate strategy is to profit from failure. The worse the economy gets, the more blood flows into their coffers. We find ethical necrosis in the donation center's software. It's designed to gamify the extraction process with points and bonuses for regular donors. The strategy was to use psychological manipulation to keep the donors compliant while their biological capital was being liquidated. The shadow supply chain. Plasma is often stored in massive, off-site warehouses before being traded like any other commodity. It is cold, sterile, and completely disconnected from the human it came from. The strategic goal was the total dehumanization of the product. The biotech rebranding. As concerns grow, the industry pivots to talk about life-enhancing therapies. They use the language of the future to hide the extraction model of the past. The strategy is to paint a high-tech veneer over a medieval parasitic relationship. The autopsy reveals legal immunization. Big pharma companies have immunity from many of the health consequences faced by donors. The strategy was to ensure that all the biological risk remains with the individual, while all the financial reward remains with the corporation. A perfect heist. Dissect the health insurance hegemony. Why is plasma so valuable? Because the private healthcare system has made it a trillion-dollar necessity. The strategy was to build an economy where the healthy pay the sick's ransom, and the poor provide the raw materials for both. We find cognitive distortion in the marketing. They tell the poor they are helping the world, but they never show the donor where the money actually goes. The strategy was to provide a moral anesthetic to justify an economic liquidation. The donors are heroes in the ads, but numbers in the ledger. The automation of extraction. New machines are faster, drawing more plasma in less time. This increases the profit per minute, but also the strain on the donor's body. The strategy is to increase the velocity of the harvest without increasing the cost of the soil. The strategic secrecy of the supply chain. Most people don't know that their blood products come from the economic outskirts of society. The strategy was to keep the consumer disconnected from the source to prevent ethical backlash. The blood on the elite's hands is perfectly filtered. The intergenerational heist. When a parent sells their health for rent, the children pay the price in a shorter life expectancy for the provider. The industry is effectively mining the biological future of the family unit for immediate dividends. The soul is being sold in 800 mil installments. Final verdict: the red gold heist is the ultimate corporate colonization. The $40 billion giants have successfully privatized the circulatory system of the poor. The patient, public health, is dead. What remains is a biological asset in a corporate portfolio. The autopsy is complete. The surgical lamp flickers. The report is signed. We have documented the industrialization of the human blood and the necropolitics of big pharma. To the boardrooms, you aren't human. You are just a high-yield biological reservoir to be drained for profit. The heist is finished. Look at the empty chair in the donation center. It looks like a place of help, doesn't it? But it's a factory floor for the most intimate product ever sold. The strategy was to make the extraction look like a choice. Mission accomplished. The blood tax has been collected. Can the patient survive? Only through a total global reclamation of biological rights. But the contracts are signed, the needles are sharp, and the poverty is deep. The death of empathy is complete. You no longer own your essence. The giants have a lien on your veins. The lights go out. The shimmering drop on the table no longer glows. The necrosis of the circulatory system has been documented. Until the next autopsy, when we dissect the next corporate titan. This is Business Autopsy Insights. Report closed. RIP Red Gold. Your price was survival.